3D printing used to be seen as just this technology of the future that was going to like revolutionize everything once it became more accessible. And funny enough, now that it is, a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people actually hate it. And a lot of the reason for why it gets so much hate is because of little 3D printed dragons. Well, more specifically, they hate the impact that these little dragons and similar prints have had on the artist vendor community, because they keep on showing up in places where it's supposed to be artists selling handmade goods. And that's making a lot of artists mad because arguably it is not handmade, which as someone who enjoys 3D printing, I kind of do agree with the artist on some of the valid points of criticism that they're making. And I do think that it is a small part of a much bigger problem that is currently threatening artists at the moment. And because of all these problems, I think that it's kind of made people forget about all the good that 3D printing has to offer. And I still think that they have a space in these maker markets as long as it is done right. The big thing that started this whole discussion was when a TikTok user who goes by Olivia made a video talking about how, as an artist vendor, why they dislike these prints being there so much.
You should not be allowed to make 3D printed crap, plastic junk, and pass it off as handmade stuff and sell it at a maker's market. This year, I've just noticed so many people selling the same, and it's the same. And that's why it makes me raise an eyebrow, because I'm like, you didn't make this up.
And a lot of people, especially artists, agreed. But understandably so, it did make a lot of people mad, definitely ruffling some feathers in the 3D printer community. Okay, now why am I talking about this? If you are someone who's familiar with this channel, you know that this is not my normal video. And don't worry, I'm not turning into some TikTok drama commentary channel. I mean, if I was, this would be a very bad start. This whole thing started like 5 months ago. So like in internet time, that's like a decade ago. I'm way too late to this. And if you don't know me, hi, I'm Jess. I'm a graphic designer turned YouTuber. I make silly little crafting videos here on the internet. And over the past year and a half or so, I've been learning and using 3D printing to make cool stuff for my projects. And this is a topic that I wanted to talk about for a while because even though this whole thing started like months ago, I still to this day continue to get videos of either people talking about specifically the problem with 3D prints in maker markets, or just in general, people bashing 3D printing as like a medium. Even comments on my own videos of people who are just mad that I use 3D printing at all. So I kind of wanted to jump in and give my opinion because, you know, YouTubers think that you want to hear their opinion, but kind of give the middle ground point of view of someone who was a designer who made art with the specific intention of having it on products to sell and makes a lot of handmade stuff as well. But also as someone who just really enjoys 3D printing, whether it be a tool for creating my own ideas or just going online and finding prints that other people have made. And also give some examples of what I think would be acceptable for 3D prints to be sold along these handmade goods. Because I do think that they can coexist, you know, just if done properly. So here are some of the topics that are constantly coming up in this discussion. Starting with the side of the other art vendors who are there selling handmade goods. A lot of these people who have given their argument against 3D printing have been specific to say that it's not all 3D printing. There is a very specific kind that they just don't want there.
I'm not talking about people who innovate something that they happen to 3D print. I'm talking about people who go online, find a pattern for some trinket, and then 3D print a bunch of them and sell them at a stand as though they've like handmade these things.
More than commonly, when people are describing them, they point to these dragons. But there's also stuff like slugs, the octopuses. It's not that the other vendors just don't like the fact that there's fidget toys there. It's the fact that these 3D prints are widely available online and are not originally made by the people who are selling them. Well, at least a majority of them are. Because online, there are plenty of places that you can go and just download 3D print files. A lot of the times for free, but there are some times that you have to pay for them. The biggest, most well-known website for this is Thingiverse. At least that is the one that I tend to go to the most. And for those of you who are maybe a little unaware with how 3D printing works, the way that you tell the 3D printer what to print is by taking one of these 3D files, sending it through a slicer, and then sending that to your printer. printer. So once you upload a 3D print file to one of these websites, literally anyone with a 3D printer can make it and sell, because a lot of them are under the Creative Commons license, which is where a lot of these little dragons and octopuses and stuff comes from. So a lot of artists are mad when they see them, because a lot of times they tend to be like a mass quantity of dragons in different colors, but they're not even like sanded or painted or anything like that. It's just the 3D print. So understandably, the artists get kind of mad when they see this, because not only is it taking up space if it is a limited number of vendors allowed at an event, but also these artists specifically come to these events because they spend a ton of time making handmade goods that they do have to charge quite a bit more in order to make it worth their time, so they get a fair price. Which is one of the reasons why they specifically go to maker markets where it's supposed to be handmade stuff, so they don't have to compete with something made by a machine that can be sold for way cheaper. So that's the artist's point of view. What about the 3D printers? There is the argument that knowing how to 3D print and how to get the best quality prints is a skill in itself. Learning the machine, learning the programs, having to do maintenance and have everything set up correctly so you don't have a print that fails. And even if you do set everything up correctly, there is still a chance that it could fail, because that's just the nature of 3D printing at the moment. Just because these machines are so precise that it's like if any small thing goes wrong, it can lead to a failure kind of easily. So 3D printing isn't as simple as some people might think. Also, there are people who have entire businesses that is based off the idea that they make the model and then sell it online with the license so other people can sell them. So it's an argument that the vendors are well within their rights to come to these markets and sell, because they bought the right to do that. And then I also wanted to kind of bring up the points of people who just think that 3D printing is a waste and terrible technology that should not exist. One of their main arguments is that a lot of the stuff that people are actually 3D printing is just junk. A bunch of memes and minifigures that just kind of sit there. And they say that no matter what, it's just going to end up in a landfill and it's just a waste. Also saying that just the overall quality of 3D printing is bad and it's ugly, because in order for something to 3D print, it has to go layer by layer, meaning that there's layer lines. And saying that 3D printing's only good use is for prototyping and that's it. I will say, and this is just a theory of mine, is that a lot of the reason that 3D printing is getting so much hate right now is kind of a result of like a bigger, more impactful threat that technology is having on the artist community, which is AI. This sort of disdain for people who don't know how to make art and claiming that they have the right to make, and just absolutely flooding the spaces and online markets with just tons of AI junk. So I feel like 3D printing kind of gets lumped in with that disdain or hatred a lot, because it's people using technology to make art, even though AI it truly is just stealing and slop. But like 3D printing is kind of getting some of that hate as well. I don't know, that's just my theory. And after considering the arguments on both sides, I do think that it still comes down to one simple question. Is something that's 3D printed count as handmade? And in my opinion, no. In its most basic form, if you're only just printing something, it's not. Like, it's literally called printing for a reason. Like, the machine does the work. To help me prove my points, I went on Thingiverse and found one of the first dragons that I could, and I wanted to see how much of my personal time it took until I actually had one of these dragons. I'm going to have a timer set from the instant I download the file to it actually being sent off to the printer for it to do the rest. Here's the file I'm using, here's the creator, that's the dragon, starting now. Down the file. And scale it down a good bit. Infill 5%, it's all good. Export. Okay, we do have to wait 20 seconds for this ad because I don't actually pay for Lychee. SD card to the 3D printer. All right, and there it goes. Okay, and with that going, we will go ahead and stop the timer. All right, and stop. 2.5 minutes. And that was with filming. From there, I was just waiting for the rest of the print time, which was 3.5 hours about, and it worked the first time, so it's good. 2.5 minutes of my own personal time, and it was mostly just me clicking buttons. I will say, I didn't spend any time going over the settings at all, and also no sanding or cleanup. So that is more steps that you could take, but I don't know if most people even do that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trashing the original artist who designed this, because it actually is quite impressive that it was able to print and work and be flexible, and that they spent time sculpting and making it into like a cool little dragon. I'm saying that it didn't take any skill on my part to now have this little 3D printed dragon, which I don't know what I'm going to do with. So because of that, I don't think these prints should be at a market that is all about selling stuff that is handmade. Even if you do spend money to buy a custom print that you now have the license to print and sell, that's still basically the equivalent of going on Shutterstock and buying either photography or some sort of art and just taking that and making a nice print of it and selling it at these markets. Like, yes, legally, technically, you are completely in your rights. It's just not in the spirit of a handmade maker's market. Also, it's not wrong to want to buy and make one of these things for yourself, or even to go and sell it online. Honestly, whatever, go get that bag. Just don't do it at a handmade market. Like, that's all they're asking. With all that being said, what do I think is an acceptable 3D print that can be sold at one of these artist markets? But hold on real quick, if you are someone who has made it to this point in the video, more than likely you are someone who is interested in taking your creativity and starting up a side hustle of your own. So let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Printful. Take it away, past me. Perhaps you're an artist who's looking to get into selling their work for the first time. Or maybe you're someone who already sells some homemade goods, but is looking for a way to expand their business. Well, Printful might just be the solution for you. Printful is a print-on-demand company, which works like this. You create a design and then upload it to Printful. Then you place and choose which products that you would like to sell it on, connect it to your own online store like Etsy, Shopify, or even directly through Printful with their quick store features. And just like that, you are selling your own products. Congratulations, a business owner in one afternoon. And the best part is that there's no upfront cost, because as the name implies, it only gets printed if there is a demand or someone buys the product, which makes Printful such a good opportunity for artists to make some passive income. Because once you create your product and upload it to your website, Printful takes care of the rest, from the manufacturing, printing, shipping, and even customer service. Meaning you get to focus on what you do best, you know, making art. Probably the reason you became an artist, not talk on the phone with the post office when a package gets mysteriously missing. For example, maybe you're an artist who already has a little bit of a following on Instagram. You can take a work that you already created, upload it, and place it on some products like posters, notebooks, stickers, apparel, and so much more. Set a profit margin and then let your followers know that they can now buy your work while also supporting you. I mean, that's what I did when I was in college as a design student. In my free time, I would make some designs and upload them onto some products, and sometimes they did actually sell and I got a little bit of extra money. So a lot of times they didn't sell. And at that point, my only loss is the time that I spent working on them. And at that point, it was already practice of making new designs, so it wasn't that much of a loss. Everything in Printful's wide catalog, from apparel, home goods, or stationaries, is all made with the highest quality printing and product standards, meaning that you can relax knowing that your customers are in good hands and will get quality products of your work. If this is something that has been like in the back of your head for a while that you've always thought about doing, I would highly recommend just going and testing out some of your designs, because Printful is completely free to sign up for and has absolutely no commitment, so you can go and just start playing around with their catalog. So if that is something you're interested in, there will be a link in the description for that. Thank you once again to Printful for sponsoring this video. And now let's go ahead and get back to our little chat. So the first and biggest thing that would make a 3D print be considered more handmade and something acceptable to sell at these markets would be making the actual 3D model yourself. Like, you are coming up with the idea, you are going in, you are 3D modeling it. Because even though you are using a 3D printer to make the final object, it is still something original from your imagination. At that point, it becomes that the 3D printer is simply a tool and not the entire making process. Like, have you seen some of the stuff that these 3D modelers have made with like sculpting tools and the blender or a ZBrush? If you ever watch a time lapse of someone doing that, I don't think that anyone can argue against the fact that that is definitely a skill that they had to learn and practice and hone in on in order to make these 3D models. So yes, while they are still making it digitally in like a 3D space, I would consider it artist made, because you can give two people the same exact tools of these 3D sculpting programs. Not both of them are going to be able to make the same product compared to just downloading a file and 3D printing it. That being said, I don't even think necessarily it is required to make everything from scratch. Like, if you took something from Thingiverse that was under Creative Commons and you take it and you modify it in some way to make it unique to an extent where you have added value to it, I think that should be allowed. Like, I think a good example of this is this dice tower that I found on Etsy, where immediately upon seeing it, I recognized that the original base dice tower is something available available for free on Thingiverse, but the artist has gone and painted it and added flowers and lights and made it clean and pretty and with a theme. They added value to make it something different and something unique. I think that is perfectly fine. Or for example, if you were going to go sell at a Ren fair, I've seen a lot of people be like, hey, I don't want a 3D printed dragon, but you know what would be cool? Some 3D printed dragon horns. Like, this would be a case where I think it would be perfectly fine to go and find some pre-made horns, print them out, sand them, make them look real nice, give them a nice paint job, glue those bad boys to a headband, maybe add some matching flowers or something like that to make it into a dragon flower crown. I think that is perfectly fine because you have to spend more time and make creative decisions to make something unique. You see what I'm saying?
Also, keeping on the Dragon Ren Fair topic, I found these cool dragon scale prints. Like, imagine that turned into like armor or bracelets or added to a bag for texture.
And then also, just to kind of step away from the idea of only 3D printing something to make a profit off of it, 3D printing offers so many cool opportunities to create stuff that I feel like a lot of people are just ignoring when they just absolutely hate on it as a medium. Like, admittedly, yes, there is a ton of memey, non-practical items that are on Thingiverse. Like, there's a lot. It's normally the most popular things. Maybe that's not something that you are interested in at all. I still think that you should let people have fun and kind of make what they want, and not just assume that anything that they make that you don't like is going to end up in the landfill. I'll admit, I'll be scrolling Thingiverse and see a cowboy possum, and my immediate thought is I want that cowboy possum on my desk, so I make it. And it makes me happy when I see it. What can I say? And also, yes, the argument that 3D printing is wasteful. I would also argue that a lot of crafting stuff is wasteful. But there are ways to cut down and to either recycle your filament, either send it somewhere to be reused in new filament. You can melt down failed prints or supports and put it into a new mold. I don't think it's fair to point at 3D printing and be like, you're the problem, when so much stuff is also a problem. Like, the amount of EVA foam that like cosplayers probably throw out is probably not great either. But also, the great thing about the 3D printing community is that people will make really cool and also practical things and then just share it with the community for free. Like, a really cool thing that I love that the 3D printers have done is that they have taken the pegboards, you know, from IKEA, where if you want to add stuff to it, you normally have to buy stuff from IKEA. Well, a bunch of people have made stuff specifically designed to be able to hang on these boards and be like custom for different tools, and it's like a universal system that we have like all agreed upon. Like, a few of these I actually bought like name brand IKEA, but one of them is just like a tray that I thought would be useful. So I printed it, and now it holds stuff. I had been meaning to hang up my ukulele and dulcimer for ages, and then I just decided, like, hey, I could probably 3D print some guitar hooks. So I went and I found some really basics ones, and I was able to actually customize the size for like the smaller neck that the instrument has, so I know it wouldn't slip off. And within like an hour or two, I was now able to hang up these instruments on my wall. Like, yes, could I have bought these things probably from Amazon and have it show up 2 days later? Yeah, but there is a coolness factor to go from, I have a need, I have a tool that can make that, I have a tool that can make it like very custom to my need. And also, not to mention that people have been able to make stuff to help with accessibility, where a product that probably would have taken a lot of money to manufacture and have to make a ton of can now be made in like someone's living room and be customized specifically for whatever that person's need is. The technology of 3D printing is just a tool that has opened up so many possibilities with creativity, whether it just be for something for hobbies like cosplay, or making mini figures for your D&D campaign, making crazy over-the-top stuff that you just think would be cool. And yes, back to the original point, it is a bit frustrating when you are an artist and you see a copy and paste generic dragon, octopus, whatever being sold next to yours. I don't think that there's much that you could do unless the markets itself start regulating against it. But I kind of feel as consumers that people are starting to steer away from it now that people know more about it. I don't think it gives the right to be rude or mean to the vendors who are, may just, I don't know. This is me trying to end my first like opinionated video without trying to offend anyone. So on that note, just let me know in the comments if you agree, if you think there is something that I missed, let me know. On that note, thank you for listening to me rant, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.